And in this part, I'm going to tell you exactly how I use my subjective perspective and my objective data from the Whoop strap. How much do you bench? How fast do you run? What's your marathon time? How far can you jump? Can you dunk? All of these are questions that we generally ask someone, but one question we never ask is, how well do you recover? Because it's not something we think about. I mean, we're trained to want to be bigger, faster, stronger. We want to lift more. We want to run faster. We want to run farther. We want to do all these things, but how are we maximizing our training into better recovery? Because there's one thing for sure, all of this training is just doing a lot of damage on our bodies. So is recovery something that you think about? Probably not. I mean, this is a video focused on a fitness tracker, specifically the Whoop strap. And as far as I know, in my experience, that isn't really a focus of these fitness trackers. I've used the Fitbit, I used to use Jawbone, and for a long time I was an Apple Watch user. And what do you want to do with the Apple Watch? You want to fill those rings, and even if it's a detriment to your overall physical health on that given day. You know, you get the alert, someone just completed a workout, they finished their rings, and for me, my total goal every single day was to hit 1,500 calories burned, and that was the moving calories. So I did whatever I could to do that, and recovery just wasn't in my mind. And I could feel myself over time going to the gym 6, 7 days a week, maybe twice a day, maybe run in the morning, and I just wasn't doing myself any favors. Then comes the Whoop strap. I got it for a number of reasons, the number one being underlying physiological conditions that are outside my subjective perspective of how I'm feeling. Because if there's one thing for sure, our brain does an excellent job of playing tricks. And that's because it's our way of surviving. Back when we're running from animals, back when we're, not living in these cozy homes, it's our way of adapting. And even if we're not feeling great, sometimes our brain can play tricks on us. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we did before these fitness trackers actually helped us give an objective perspective. And that was our subjective viewpoint, our perceived recovery. Is this a bad thing? No, absolutely not. The more attuned to your body, you should be realizing that you have some physiological differences that don't feel like you're 100%. You wake up, you feel groggy, and it's just not a day that you feel like you're gonna give it your all. So perhaps that day you lay off a bit because that's just how you're feeling. And there was a study done on a group of rugby players where they were doing both things. They were doing subjective viewpoints and objective viewpoints. And they found that overall as a team, they could gauge through surveys that a player or all the players, how they felt. And it was good enough. And that's the big term, good enough. Because finding objective parameters to monitor day to day was just too much work. So the study concluded with just that. Because it was too much work and there was too much data analytics and there was too much of getting the time of the rugby players, taking away from their training, trying to get all these measurements to give objective perspectives, that the subjective viewpoint did a good enough job. And good enough isn't really what we want and what we do here. Now that we have the Whoop strap, how does this change? Well, a big example is the NFLPA. That's the National Football League Players Association, who made Whoop straps available to all the players. So going back to these other fitness trackers, you open up the Apple Watch and you see your rings, because the big emphasis on that outside ring is the calorie expenditure for the day, the moving calories. Conversely to that, you open up the Whoop app and what do you see? Scroll over and that you see the big ring. Because the big emphasis is, yes, hitting your strain goal for the day, but it's all based on your recovery score. And what Whoop has is you have the red, the yellow, and the green. And we're always striving for the green, we're training in the yellow, and if we're in the red, that maybe we're scaling back. And this is something proprietary that Whoop has created, and it's based off, it was 3, now it's 4 metrics. It's your sleep performance, your HRV, which we're not gonna go too much into in this video because that's what I did a special video on, your resting heart rate, and newly added was the respiratory rate. And all of these have a function. HRV, that's your autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic branches, and when they're working synonymous with one another, that's when your body's super healthy. Now I do have to add a caveat that if both of these systems are undergoing a lot of stress, then that could also boost your HRV as well. So we'll get into more how you're going to deal with that. Your sleep quality. Everybody knows that you need sleep. I also did the sleep video on the Whoop strap, so go ahead and check that video out. On average, we all need 8 hours sleep, no one's special. Then you have your resting heart rate. The good range and the average range is going to put you about 60 to 90 beats per minute. I'm under, so as your cardiovascular health gets better, your resting heart rate should lower. And any deviation from your average or really far off what you're getting night to night is going to indicate that there may be some sort of illness. And that's also the same with the respiratory rate. High respiratory rates, and I'm talking 2 points or more, is another big reason I got the Whoop strap, is because it indicated that my girlfriend had COVID before she felt any symptoms. We were able to quarantine ourselves ahead of time and get ahead of the problem. So these different measurements are weighted. It was in thirds. Now I'm not sure with the respiratory rate. I can't assume that it's going to be 25% for all in that ring, but taking all these factors into consideration gives you this ring that you're trying to hit 100% recovery. So interpreting that, your body's dedicating this amount of resources to recover your body from the strain that you put on the previous day. But let's not forget that we have all these other biological functions going on. We have microscopic cellular interactions going on. We're digesting, we're going through like mental stress and all these other things that are just not from working out, that perhaps we don't think about. And that's what the Whoop strap and the recovery does an excellent job at, giving us an objective perspective. Now, does that mean that we should ignore our subjective perspective? Absolutely not. And in this part, I'm going to tell you exactly how I use my subjective perspective and my objective data from the Whoop strap. So there's no real humble way to say this, but I would say taking the average of the population, I'm going to be on the above average side. I'm going to say that my overall health and wellness and fitness is probably much better than the average Joe. At one point, I was working out 7+ times a week, meaning that I was doubling up on some days and I wasn't taking adequate rest. Again, I was trying to fill the rings. Now I've really altered my training schedule. I'm getting older, I'm 31 now. I'm not the young mid-20s guy or the young collegiate athlete that I once was. And I really am focusing on now getting in the routine and taking care of my body so that I can be better as I age, and it's going to be a lot harder for me to recover. So from going to 7+ times a week, I'm talking about 4 or 5 times a week. I have a schedule of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, and do Friday, Saturday. Saturday happens in the morning, so it gives me a lot of time to recover before I work out again on Monday afternoon. But in the midweek, the Wednesday and Thursday is going to be a moving day. Maybe I'm off Wednesday and I work out Thursday instead, or I'll take both of those days off. And I do that by taking my subjective viewpoint of how I feel and my objective viewpoint. Subjective is just my pure perception, again, and then the Whoop strap gives me my objective perspective. And the only time I deviate from weighing the two from one another is that if I get a 100% like just all red in the Whoop strap recovery, because I don't care how I feel, something's off that really dipped that score down, and I should be taking active recovery steps like stretching, meditating, or whatever on that day instead of going to the gym. When I'm in the yellow, that's where I'm really gauging my subjective and my objective viewpoint. But like I said before, if something's really wrong with your sympathetic and parasympathetic on both ends and your HRV is still going to be high, that is still an indication that there's something wrong, but you're going to appear in the green. So there's no magic to these straps. You got to really understand your body in relation to the data you're getting, because there is a journal that asks you if you're injured or you're sick, and you really got to help it out and give your own viewpoint, taking all the data into consideration of whether or not you should be exercising that day. So we have the two great tools. We have our Whoop and our Mind, and it's all about balance. So just to wrap up this video, what I want you to take away is that Whoop does an amazing job giving you an objective viewpoint on your recovery. It's something that, as you can see from clinical studies, wasn't readily available to, not only professional athletic organizations, but to the average person. And now that we have that, it's amazing. But don't let that dictate everything you do day to day. You got to make sure that you're listening to your body and your mind as well, and using the two in balance and harmonizing them to a point where you fully understand how you're going to use the data for yourself. So hope everything made sense in this video. I do have my own code, and that's going to support the channel if you join below for the Whoop Strap. Gives you $30 off and a free Whoop Strap. So go check in the description, and I'll see if I can pin it in the comments for you. Follow me on Instagram, like, subscribe to this video, and I'll see you in the next one.